All right, guys, we're back again. COVID Cabal. Apologize for the delay. I was getting the slides together and took a little bit longer. Took a little bit longer than I expected. Wanted to have really good slides for you guys today. There's a lot of stuff to cover. We may even go a little bit over 6 today. It's a very good show, and it's a very important show, actually. One second. It's a very important show today, actually, because as many of you guys know, this is the year anniversary I got out of prison. Can you believe it? Can you believe it has been 1 year since Pat Stedman got out of prison? How much changes in a year, guys? 1 year in there, been 1 year out. It just shows, like, I know this isn't this kind of show, right? But it's one of those things you can't give it up. You can't give up in life. Even if you get really punched in the face hard, you can't give up. There is so much beautiful stuff that can occur if you just keep moving, keep focusing forward. And if you take what you experienced in that hard situation and you own it, you alchemize it, and you use it to grow as a person. Sometimes people can have really bad setbacks, a lot worse than me, right? One of the things, you go in prison, you realize I certainly did not have it as hard as it humbles you, right? It humbles you, but people bounce back. People bounce back. At the end of the day, as long as you still got energy, you can bounce back, and you can turn the worst situations to the good. That's something, even in the situation in our country, that I believe that too. That's why I do this show. I don't do this show because I love you guys. I have fun. I have fun doing the show. You know what I mean? But I don't do this show because, when have I ever tried to spread despair on this show? I try to be real with people about what's happening, but if anything, I've been, delusionally too optimistic at times. Let's say not realistic. Let's put it that way, because you can be realistic and optimistic. A realistic optimist is somebody who enjoys the fight, whatever the outcome, to a certain extent. It's a paradox. It's the faith of knowing that you're going to win, but feeling in your heart you're going to win, even when you intellectually know that maybe the odds are against you. And I think for many times, for the last few years, that was the case. I think now we have both reasons in our mind and in our heart to believe in victory. So if you guys are here, leave a comment in the chat. I got some great chat here too. This is my man, Train Companion here. Train Companion was in there with me. He's a really good man, and I don't know if he wants me to out him, so I'm not gonna out him. But he's a very good man, and he's been through harder stuff than me. That's for sure. I love you, brother. We did have a good time in there. I'm glad you're out too. Wine we're drinking for the 1 year. You're right. I should have picked out something nicer. You know what? You're right about that, Jose. I should. This is good. I didn't get any. It's not crap. This is Verdicchio di Castelli de Jesi, and this is from the northeastern part of Italy. It's a kind of obscure white wine. I remember I've had Verdicchio on this show before. Verdicchio is not a common white wine in Italy. It's mostly just found in that region, which I cannot remember the name of the region, but I know it's on the Adriatic. It's in the northeast, south of the Po Valley. I could probably look on a map and get it, but it's been a while. The problem is that unless you're getting like a really, really good producer, and I'm not sure about this producer because I didn't buy this bottle, my dad did. No offense to my dad, sometimes he just likes to have a nice drinking wine. It's very it could be, it's distinct. It's got a little like rubberiness to it, which I'm not saying that as an insult, but it's not a particularly. I remember the Verdicchio I had on the show was something nice. It was pretty nice. Had like a lot of flowers and stuff. This is Think of like a really watery green apple. That's kind of what it tastes like. Not no bright fruit in this one at all. It's a tart apple. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Next COVID cabal will make up for it with something nice. All right, my friends. Yeah, this was the 2020 lives, man. That was we're never gonna be able to recreate that. Just because I'm not the same guy. We're not. None of us are the same. You know, it was like a moment in history going through that. That was fun though. That was fun. Even though it ended up getting me arrested and thrown in the feds, I wouldn't take it back. Don't tell my wife and parents that. I wouldn't take it back. It was a fun time. It was a fun time. A really solid 2.5 months of just being in the trenches. All right, let's get in the show today. All right. So, couple things. All right, last thing here. I have most of the stuff from season 1 saved. So maybe that's something I'll do. Maybe I'll start uploading it to YouTube. I did pull I think all of them. The ones like that, not all of the ones from the intermediate season, you know, when we were just kind of doing random episodes here or there after the arrest. I don't know that I have all of those because I started to do them on Twitch after. So I'll see what I have. You know, if I don't have them all, I have most of them. So yeah, it'd be good to have them. But let's be honest, Jose, are you really gonna watch these? I don't know. It's crazy. It's definitely something for posterity, though. All right, so let's go into what's happened. Okay, there's a couple things. The London connection is really important. Those of you guys who have been watching the show for a while know that I'm pretty bought into Luongo's thesis about London. It's not just London, it's the deeper group behind it. But I think that there is a very prominent element here of the British Empire, at least elites in Britain, trying to take down the United States and trying to control the United States. And you know, guys from COVID Cabal season 1 know we did a long history of what actually was going on behind the scenes between U.S. and Britain. And I know that some of you guys love that history series, the sort of forgotten stuff, reading between the lines. We are now at this juncture, though, where I think this war is becoming more and more obvious. And if there's anything that underlines Tom's thesis here, and by the way, Juan O'Savin, even that guy, right? Even good old Juan, who I might still, if it comes to my attention, I might listen to him once in a blue moon, you know. If this doesn't underline the truth behind Tom's thesis, I don't know what does. So Kamala's been going to London. Mike Pompeo, Obama again, Obama a third time. Andrew Weissman, Jack Smith. Okay. Isn't that interesting? Why are all of these people that Trump is going after? Why are all the people that tried to that stole the election to this country in 2020, the people who tried to put Trump in prison, the people responsible for the massive persecution, right? Why are all these people going to London? What is the reason for that? Well, I think it's actually related to the same reason that the United States cut off their intelligence sharing with the rest of the Five Eyes. Isn't that interesting? And here's another thing that's interesting. Israel also cut off its intelligence sharing with Britain. Now, I know that we have all this hate for Israel, and I know to some people here, I'm the biggest Jew cuck in the world. I really, you know, fair enough. I'm not, but I think it's just a matter of my emphasis here. I think that I look at Bill Ackman, right, complaining about, oh, we have to look at what they're, look at what Mandami is going to do. We're going to talk about Mandami too. Look at what Mandami is, going to do to New York. Like, we need to protect like the Jews, and like, Jews really got to get shut the fuck up. I mean, honestly, just shut the fuck up about yourselves. Like, please, please. This victim thing has to stop. People are so fucking tired of it. They're so tired of it. Learn from Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is looking for win-wins. He knows that if America wins, which means a lot of America's heritage population, if they win, then Jews in America are going to win. Please, like, you guys are supposed to be smarter than this. You're supposed to be like a little bit more crafty. Like this constant like kvetching about all the fucking problems that you guys face that you created because you backed a lot of these people. You backed a lot of the policies that brought them into the country. So I'm not a Jew cuck, but I will say this. I'm also not an idiot, and I'm not gonna, I've said this many times. I'm not aligning myself with Palestinians. I'm not aligning myself. I refuse these sort of like, you have to choose one or the other. Everybody, like the most radical communists, support the Palestinians, and I know that what's going on in Palestine is disgusting. Don't get me wrong, it's disgusting. But you're just not going to catch me. You're not going to catch me throwing out the baby with the bathwater here. Okay? I'm going to tell you what's going on with Israel. I am going to tell you what's going on with Israel and what Trump's been doing. I talked about this a little bit before, but I want to like underline it because, sometimes you have new people in the show. Sometimes you need to emphasize this a little bit more for people to fully grasp. But Trump is not ceding ground globally to other countries without getting something very good in return. And he is not going to give up Israel. Now, the ethno-narcissism of a lot of the Jewish kind of class notwithstanding, and by the way, I don't blame them for this. I don't have any animus for them towards it, but let's just call a spade, right? There's a lot of that. White people are typically the least ethno-narcissistic. It's worked to our disadvantage. Maybe that's changing. Whatever. Bottom line is that there is obviously a connection. You have the Rothschilds, etc. I don't think the jury is really clear, personally, whether, if the Jews controlled everything, and especially the very wealthy Jews, how is Mandami getting into power? Maybe they created the monster. Do they have full control over it? The world's more complicated than this is what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. It's more complicated than this. And there is definitely a group of European elites that are not Jewish that are also involved in the globalist takeover. There are Jewish people involved with Davos in the city of London, and there are many who are not. They're European. So is it that simple and straightforward? No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is, actually. I do think that they're heavily involved with the club, but look, let's see what happens in terms of that. Maybe history will make that more clear to us. But this is the point I'm trying to get to. Like, I don't want to digress too much on this topic, especially since it's already been kind of covered before to some extent. Israel was a British asset. And it was a British asset that also embedded itself in America through evangelicalism. So you have the Schofield Bible, right, that produces this sort of Looney Tunes type of Christianity, where you have people like Mike Huckabee thinking that the entire purpose of being a Christian is to preserve the state of Israel, which is really, when you see someone say this kind of stuff, you have to start, you kind of start to wonder, like, are they under some kind of mind control? Like, did they get MK Ultra? Because there's no logical coherency to it. None of it makes any sense whatsoever. And yet it has been a very big facet of conservatism in parts of this country for a long time. And okay, well, we know that Bible was backed by the Rothschilds. So there is this sort of linkage. But where did Israel come from? Israel came from Britain. So was Israel really a British asset? This is what I'm talking about, like the rabbit hole stuff. Was Israel really being controlled by the city of London? and indirectly America was being used through Israel. The reason I mention this is because it's very clear that Israel is being cut off from Britain. Mossad cut off intelligence sharing with MI6. The fight that's going on right now between Trump and Netanyahu is that Trump is trying, and this is what people don't understand, because you can see that Trump is trying to help Israel, but not giving Israel everything that they want, which automatically doesn't make him a cuck, but it makes him somebody who's trying to wrestle this country back under America's control rather than having the tail wag the dog as it had been before. The question is, was there another, the tail that was wagging the dog, Israel, was that tail being wagged by another tail, Britain? That's the bigger question here. So, I think that Trump is in the process of conquering Israel, not the other way around. I think it's going this way. The issue that he faces is the control of a lot of Congress through Israel, but maybe he's being able to bypass some of this because he's keeping Israel close and cutting off Britain. These are just some things I want you to consider. But when Trump came to Israel, everybody was cheering him and they were booing Netanyahu. Okay? First thing. Second thing, when JD Vance is in Israel and the Knesset holds a vote on annexing the West Bank, JD Vance basically is like, this was like a clown show. It's not going to happen. And Trump then clarifies later on and says if Israel tries to annex the West Bank, they will not support Israel. It doesn't get any more clear than that. How can you call that Jew cucking? You can't call it that. It's not that. What it is that they're trying to create these conflicts. They're trying to start things up. Trump's putting out fires. The Brits, whatever, they're trying to... This group, this shadow group, which has heavy influence in Brussels and London, the Vatican, they are trying to start them again. Trump recently put out a fire in, he's going around the world doing peace deals constantly. He's going to be doing a peace thing between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And maybe he's going to get some of our military equipment back in the process. He did a peace deal recently between Cambodia and Thailand. And now you have this, right? In the wake of the elections in Japan, where Japan, after getting 3% migrants, is now having a nationalist prime minister, the first female prime minister too, which is pretty funny. So look at this. This has always been like an interesting little bit of lore. Ever since World War II, the Kuril Islands, and by the way, no offense to my Russians, because, my Russian friends, I'm all about annexing Ukraine, but we should be returning Sakhalin in the Kurils to the Japanese. Sorry, we should, this is Japanese territory, guys. But anyway, I'm joking, kind of. The Kuril Islands were never actually, even though they're under Russian control, Japan never ceded sovereignty of them. And now we see Japan and Russia finally negotiating an agreement. You have to look at the timing of these things and think it's quite interesting, isn't it? It's quite interesting that all of these conflicts are suddenly getting solved, all these frozen conflicts. Because what is the point of a frozen conflict? What is the point of having these things that can open up anywhere? You create a divide and conquer situation. You make two people fight, you start a fire, and you make two people have to fight then as a result. That is the playbook of the British Empire, this group in particular. I say this group in particular because I want to make a point that I don't necessarily mean that the entire British Empire was bad or that all the intentions were bad, but you have a group within it that has their own objectives and their own agendas, and this stuff certainly grows over time. And at some point, it becomes hard to separate one from the other. That's where we're at this point in time. So the London connection is very, very strong. But we have a guy on our side who has turned the tides, and that's Scott Bessent. So I skipped some of this. I only have 10 slides I can use in these shows, and the rest of it wasn't important. But I can just tell you basically, Besant was someone who's gay, and he went to Yale. He was going to go in the military, didn't want to lie about being gay, goes to Yale. And the big thing about Besant, and why some people were skeptical about him from the beginning, is that Besant was one of Soros's henchmen. The famous attack on the markets, in the British markets, the Bank of England, really, in the early 90s was done by Soros, right? But Besant was the hatchet man who pulled it off. And they basically shorted the Bank of England. It was very reminiscent of the kind of stuff that happened when Rothschild himself, or one of the Rothschild sons, I can't remember which one, um, when he spread news that the British had lost at Waterloo when they had won. So the markets collapsed, and then he bought it all up at pennies on the dollar when the news actually hit that they had, obviously won. And that's when the Rothschilds started to really control finances in England. So Besant was Soros's hatchetman. People were skeptical of him. But when Trump won in 2017, Besant seemingly flipped. He gave Trump $1 million after giving just a few thousand to the Democrats previously. And he's now Treasury Secretary. And I'm going to honestly, I think Trump has an amazing cabinet. We can nitpick a few of these things. We can talk about Pam Bondi and, cash and whatever. Some of you still don't like him, and that's okay. But overall, we have to say that Trump's cabinet is very, very good. Hegseth is fantastic. Rubio is fantastic. Gabbert's fantastic. RFK is fantastic, right? I think even, and that's, and that's just the front runners. There's a lot of good ones deeper in the bench too. And yet, all of this notwithstanding, I really believe that Besant might be the absolute best person in the entire cabinet. Besant, the tariff policy, all of this entire fight that we've had, so much of it is based on financial warfare, and Besant is the man behind it. He's the man behind it. And so this is a thing that happens. So I'm going to return to the slide in a second, but I want to just, show this real quick because this is very important. This is a very, very important development. Milei absolutely had a landslide in Argentina. Look at this, 172% victory, 37 to 101, 6 to 20 senators. Okay. Absolutely incredible. And part of this whole thing was America made tons of money on this. So they shored up Milei in Argentina, and they made tons of money on it. So we bailed out Argentina's currency, right, by buying billions in pesos. So we're making a profit off of it. That also helped Argentina help Milei to win the election. This is very significant. And by the way, this is another thing to just, like, as I've talked about in previous shows, isolationists just don't get the world that we live in. There's a difference between America being a superpower that focuses on America, even an empire. Let's be blunt here. America is not really upset about being an empire. We're upset about being an empire that exists to serve the world, not America. Like, we are the ones being colonized. It's not actually America isn't the empire. America is being parasited by the New World Order's empire. An actual American empire, just like the British Empire, not bad for the citizens of the country. I'm not saying that it's a good thing or that we should really be an empire in, like, a very, very physical sense, or that as an empire you can't focus on win-wins. But we didn't like the American empire that meant invade Iraq, get no oil, get nothing except trillions in debt, and then import everybody you attacked, and then have thousands of soldiers, wounded and maimed, and, for what? To serve some creating chaos in the Middle East, Israel's foreign policy. You know what I mean? Like, this kind of stuff. This is the stuff that nobody wants. Everyone's done with. They're done being gaslit by some, like, fat fuck in Washington who says we have to bomb this country because it's part of our values. It's part of our democratic values. You know, fucking guy, fucking slob. No one wants to see that shit. But if you're talking about actually securing American interests around the world, different story. Actually, different story. Americans are fine with that. And by the way, we're doing a good job of showing people in the Southern Hemisphere. We talked last COVID cabal. What did we talk about? We talked about how Trump is punching Colombia and Venezuela in the fucking face. Brazil's on notice because of how they're treating Bolsonaro. They are obviously next in the chain. Okay? Mexico, we have our own thing with Mexico. Mexico's a little bit more afraid of us because of the proximity. Canada's also up there. I didn't mention when I talked about the fight between us and Davos, how they're trying to hit us with the blue states. Which, by the way, it makes New Jersey a really serious election in the next week. We'll talk about that next show, though. I didn't talk about the fact that we're doing the same to Canada. Like I talked about it in Europe, but I didn't say how we're breaking apart Canada too with Alberta and Saskatchewan. Like there's this pressure on every front. But Argentina and El Salvador are our biggest allies in the Western Hemisphere, in the Americas. El Salvador is wonderful, but it's more of like a mimetic power. It's a very small country. Argentina is not. Argentina is very significant. Milei has backed Trump from the beginning, and we have rewarded him by facilitating his election, because if Argentina didn't get that help, the election may not have gone so well. And we made money off of it. And that was Scott Besson who did it. Wrong slide. That was Scott Besson who did it. Where the fuck does that slide go? The fuck my slide went. Here it is. So what he did was the opposite of what he did with the Bank of England. So in the case of the Bank of England, there was a big short. In this case, it was the opposite. He bought at the bottom, pumps up the Argentine ETF, right? This financial war is so important, and Besson is really amazing. Besson is really, really quite amazing. Trump picks exactly who he needs at that time on purpose. Even if they are warmongering vultures like John Bolton, they were picked on purpose for a strategic reason. I mean, you know, I think with Trump's first term, you have two ways that you can look at this. You can look at it from the standpoint that Trump knew exactly all these people and what they were doing, and you know, that was it, right? And so he was trying to expose them. And that's a very cute perspective on it. I don't know if that's the case, to be honest. I don't know. And I mean that, like, maybe it's a little bit too convoluted, to be honest, for my taste at this point in time. I believe that God is controlling the outcome of this, that we're going to have a good victory story, but even Trump doesn't know everything. And I do think that Trump was fooled by certain individuals. There may have been plans that were put in place that didn't work in the end. For instance, some of these Q posts talked about trust Sessions. Sessions, maybe that's because Sessions had a role to play and he didn't play it. Maybe I'll turn out to be wrong about that, but no one even knows. Like, Sessions been gone out of public eye forever. That'll be really interesting if he pops up. Be very interesting. What do I think the future is for Argentina now? Argentina is like in a deep malaise. You know what? I'm going to talk to some of my Argentine friends and get their ground perspective, and maybe we'll address this on another COVID cabal, because right now, like, Argentina has a real demographic situation as well. I mean, people like to talk about the fact that some people will say it doesn't have any illegal immigration. That's just not true at all. I mean, there's tons of illegal immigration. And while Argentina is still the most European South American country, it doesn't it's not as European as it was 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that's for sure. I mean, you look at Argentina in the 50s, it was indistinguishable from Southern Europe, pretty much. You know, it was mostly Italians and Spanish and some Germans. And it doesn't look like that anymore. It's definitely, you know, whatever. I mean, that's not the biggest point here, but the point is that there's a class difference in the country and there's a hollowing out of the Argentine middle class. So it's becoming more and more like a country that has like Brazil. It's becoming more like Brazil, in other words, over time, demographically. Doesn't have a large African population, but in its own way, it's becoming more like Brazil demographically. So I don't know if Milei is going to ultimately be able to undo all the damage. It will be very interesting to see if he can. I do think Argentina has immense potential, tons of natural resources, solid human capital still. I mean, it's doable. It's doable. Absolutely. I do know that Milei's reforms, some of them are better for PR than they've actually occurred. You know, people in the country are still struggling a lot. So we'll see where it goes. So, last thing I want to talk about real quick here is well, actually, I want to mention this before I forget about it. We're gonna then, you know, dovetail into some of the Mondami stuff. Actually, you know what? I kind of want to save the Mondami stuff. I'm gonna save the Mondami stuff for the next COVID Cabal on Thursday, because I have a whole thing about there's just not enough time to go into it in detail. But I want to talk about the stuff with Mondami and about the citizenship issue. So I have those slides. I'm going to save those, but I do want to talk about this. This is important. So Ana Paulina Luna, who's kind of become like the new Matt Gaetz in Congress in the sense of being the spokesperson for Trump's agenda in there. And by the way, I do want to just make a point that Matt Gaetz, I love him. I've heard that a lot of those allegations against him were actually quite true, and that's why he resigned from Congress. Because I look, I'm all about trust the plan. I haven't really seen benefits of Matt Gaetz's move out of Congress. So I love him as a person. I don't really care about the allegations, to be honest, because we're past the point of being petty like that. But it's interesting because you know he's not been as effective where he is now than he was in Congress. He would have been much more effective in Congress. So it begs the question why he left. Did he feel confident he was going to get that attorney general position, or was it always the plan that he wasn't going to get it, but they were going to he was going to have to resign from Congress anyway? So that was a way for him to essentially take a blow for Trump because they couldn't reject more of his candidates. So he was going to be the one who, oh, no, we can't let Matt Gaetz in. So they had to expend political capital on blocking Matt Gaetz as attorney general. I don't know. I'll just say that Matt Gaetz is clearly like, I hope he comes back in some way, but I hope his son didn't set. I hope there's a role for him in the future. Yeah, he's been amazing. I've just heard that actually, though, the allegations against him were true. I mean, again, I don't care about them. You know, like giving, you know, money and stuff, 17-year-olds, stuff like that. I don't care about this stuff. I really don't care about it. Anyway, but the point is, Ana Paulina Luna has kind of become the new front, let's say, and you know, she's Trump's favorite kind of spokesperson, who's like a attractive MILF. Trump's always MILF maxing. If he can get himself a good MILF, then that's Trump's modus operandi, and he doesn't discriminate. He, you know, people on Fox, they're all about the blonde-haired MILF. Trump doesn't discriminate. He'll take the brown, you know, he'll take the brunette MILF. He doesn't care about that. So anyway, Representative Luda, she's out there. She gave a good interview. One of the things she talked about, though, and I want to, like, it's a little bit hard to see, so I'm going to read it out. I think based on what we're being told, I think he was likely, this is about Epstein, likely foreign intelligence definitely gathering information She also said if they had anything on Trump, he would not be president right now. And based on what she's seen, it's very possible Democrats did tamper with evidence. Also, more interestingly, she says this is an ongoing active legal case where the Treasury is getting involved. So this is interesting to me because it is what we talked about on COVID Cabal the other day, right? I mentioned this as a possible reason that they had tampered with the evidence. We don't know how they tampered with it, but it makes sense that they were trying to rush him. You know, they knew Trump was going to release it. Trump's going to release it. And then last minute, they're like, oh shit, we can't release this. This isn't right. There's stuff in here that isn't correct. And then it's a massive backpedal. And Trump starts to do like loyalty testing, like demanding people like trust me, just trust me, we can't release it, stop talking about it. And then, you know, as this is happening, all the most bad faith people you could imagine, all of a sudden, after having 4 years to release it, start demanding Trump release it. It all really does line up that it was tampered with. The question is, how was it tampered with? So I do think we may find out the answer with this, right? You know, this is Trump. He's a MILF maxer. That's the way it is, you know? That's look, you get to a certain age, you should be MILF maxing. You want the fertile woman, right? You want actually I don't even know if Anna Polina has any kids. It's all right. No one can accuse you of anything sick when you're MILF maxing, right? That's the thing. You go like Matt Gaetz, he was into women who were too young. He should have been MILF maxing. Although apparently they'll still get you on something like some sick, perverted, middle-aged woman, whatever that woman's name is, who get the lawsuit against Trump for like allegedly, you know, raping her, like this big rape fantasy she had in like a department store. Man, this shit's too crazy. It's too crazy. But anyway, I think that's good for today, guys. I think that's good for today. We're on a good trajectory, though. Remember, we are on a great trajectory. When we come back on Thursday, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the immigration stuff in Mandami, and let's see what happens in the meantime. There's always more stories coming, but I think things are going to get exciting. I think it's going to get good, guys. I think it's going to get good. So thank you as always for coming. 1 year out of prison, and we're back at it. Cheers. Cheers to all of you. I appreciate you. Have a great day.